Hello, fellow baseball nuts, and a big warm welcome to episode 20 of the Johnny and Josh Show. What a pleasure it is to tell you the four horsemen of the apocalypse are reunited. Yes, Big Dave, JC, and Eric are back. Boys, it hasn't been the same without you. Well, we haven't missed you, Dave, but Eric, we've really missed you.
I know.
See, you didn't have to do that.
I didn't.
Very impolite of you.
Didn't have to, but he wanted.
I can't say I'm surprised, honestly.
So are we the four horsemen of the apocalypse now?
Which horsemen are each of us?
I got it, Eric.
Who's pestilence? Who
Well,
wants to be pestilence?
more relevant to this is that the number 20 is four qualities, apparently. Highly sensitive, empathetic, compassionate, and sometimes needy. I'm assuming JC, the last one's you, buddy.
What about bitchy?
I thought I was all of them. It sounded like Jack.
You were ticking those boxes. No wonder you're loving this show. We haven't even started, and this is your show. Okay, well, if that's relevant to you, JC, the biblical reference, which is proving here we go. No, it's proving very popular. Dave, this one's for you.
Thank you.
20 spiritually is a strong number. Angels use this number to reveal to you that it is time to embark on your spiritual journey. Have you been on a spiritual journey, Big Dave? Is that why you haven't been with us for the last month?
I've been, I've been to Mecca, and I've also been to Jerusalem all in the last 2 weeks.
Is that right?
And Medina?
And Medina,
the big three, and Vegas,
and Rome. Actually, you're the one who's close to Rome, yes. Josh. You were in Italy.
I've been on a spiritual journey, guys. I went to Cooperstown.
An ice cream shop?
Cooperstown.
You went to Cooperstown?
Yeah, that was my spiritual journey
like
2004.
20 years ago.
Wait. You're not recently.
No, 2000.
Oh, okay.
Was it 2004? Yeah, 2004. First road trip I ever went on.
Another one.
Is that the most spiritual place you have been?
No,
Marrakesh after 11 o'clock at night.
No, Stamford Bridge was pretty spiritual.
Oh, get out!
Oh God! Keep it moving, Goldie.
I apologize to all.
Stamford Bridge.
Okay, notable 20s, guys. I actually slightly shipped this one out a few episodes back. This, of course, is notable for the simple reason it's the most retired number in the history of baseball. That's right.
I didn't know that.
11 number 20s, and there's some very key individuals. Frank Robinson, obviously being one. Mike Schmidt, Lou Brock. My personal favorite, if I can share it with you, is Gonzo. Luis Gonzo Gonzalez, of course.
God, you never hear about him anymore.
Well, played 9. You should. I mean, for me, one of my all-time favorite memories, 19 seasons. Obviously, spent a lot of time with a lot of different teams. I think it was about 7 in all. But of course, most famous for his time with the D-backs, and of course his game-winning hit in Game 7 of the 2001 World Series. Possibly my all-time favorite World Series, if I'm honest, guys. Between the Yankees
infamous number 20, Ralph Branca, wore number 20 for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Gave up that famous home run in 1951.
I think the most underrated there is Lou Brock, personally. I know he's a Hall of Famer, but he's never put in that upper echelon. He was a guy who's the best base runner
I agree.
Of his era. He had over 3,000 hits. Fantastic player for St. Louis. And he started with the Cubs, but when he was in St. Louis, really helped carry them to successful seasons. I'm a big Lou Brock supporter. Booster.
Pete Alonso, of course, 2-time home run derby champion. Pete Alonso, number 20 for the New York Mets, and Howard Johnson for the New York Mets.
Hojo.
Of course, the one that really matters, the best number 20 for me, and I think for anybody who actually loved baseball in the 70s.
Anyone with a soul.
It was Mark Fidrych of the Detroit Tigers, 1976 Rookie of the Year. Mark Fidrych. I will go later on in the show more into detail about number 20. Rest in peace, Mark Fidrych.
Rest in peace. Looking forward to that.
Okay, a COVID update, boys. Anything to report? Canadian border, Eric?
Canadian border is still open, kind of. It's been reopened. What's happening lately, as it was announced 2 days ago, American tourists are allowed to come into Canada, provided they're double jabbed.
Thank God.
And show proof. But Canadian citizens aren't allowed to go into the United States for shopping.
Quite right as well. Yeah.
Well, which means David could go to Atwater Market in Montreal and pick up
his
maple syrup, but I can't go down to New York if I was in Canada and pick up all the stuff that I mailed to his house.
But hang on, let me just ask. So if Dave does go to Canada to pick up his maple
No,
syrup, will. But can he then get back into the US, or is it only it's only anti-non-American citizens?
It sounded like a maths problem. David travels to the market in Montreal at 26 miles per hour. If he wants to return at 22 miles,
the maple syrup is in Atwater going 0 miles an hour. When will he reach the maple syrup?
Yeah, moving on.
Moving on, guys. I got some great news. The Twitter following for the Johnny and Josh show, it's up again. We're up to 2,183. Can you believe we did a competition to get to 2,000? And we're flying through that baby now. We may have to do another competition, get us to 3,000. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, here's a question for our viewers. Well, I don't think that's the right word, viewers, listeners. It should be viewers. Should we bring back more of our YouTube videos? And I'm assuming the ones that are all,
yes,
okay.
Because obviously, I know we've had a bit of a restructuring on the show and at Ted Fred Media, and there isn't been anybody available to help us with the video output and all this. But who knows? Should we continue putting YouTube videos back onto our YouTube channel?
What did I brush my hair for?
Exactly.
I
wear a different baseball cap every single episode.
Yeah, nobody knows.
And nobody's there to appreciate that both Josh and Dave had a shave for this broadcast.
So we'll make it
like 4 days ago, 3 days ago.
He was tongue in cheek there,
That was sarcasm. Don't know about the tongue in the cheek, mate.
All right, let's go. Moving on.
Okay, trivia. Eric, what have you got for me?
Trivia. Well, this week's trivia. The other day, the Oakland A's, by the way, won 17-0.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Over the Cleveland Indians.
Did you know that in the history of the athletics organization, when they were the Philadelphia Athletics, the Kansas City Athletics, before they became the Oakland Athletics, they had never won by a 17-run margin ever. That's the highest margin.
Really?
And they've been around for a while. Yeah, exactly.
They never won above 17 either. So that's the high watermark.
There you go. Now they set the bar. But one of the interesting things about that game is that Matt Chapman tied the record, the Oakland A's record, the Athletics record, for most walks in a single game with 5. He got walked 5 times in that game.
Wow.
But that's not the Major League Baseball record. So my question to you is, which of these 4 players has the record for most walks in a single game?
Good question.
That's a very good question.
Is
I like
it
that
A,
question.
Bryce Harper?
No.
Is it B, Jeff Bagwell?
Could be.
Is it C, Barry Bonds?
Almost definitely.
Or D, Dusty Baker?
Oh,
Dusty Baker?
you had to throw
You
that
had
in.
to bring in Dusty.
I mean,
You love throwing Dusty
I
in
could have
there.
thrown in Ichiro, but I didn't.
I was recently looking at Bonds's walk stats, and they
Ridiculous.
are insane. He spent a season where he walked over 200 times.
But they were
Did he have
intentional.
62 intentional walks that year?
No, it was more than that. It was over 100.
Yeah, I was going to say, but that's not the same. If you're being intentionally walked, that's massive respect you're getting from the
The point being,
opposition.
he walked over 100 times where it wasn't intentional, and over 100 times where it was intentional. It's ridiculous. That guy.
So,
was
anyways, so to reiterate, the question was that Matt Chapman tied the Oakland A's athletics record with 5 walks in a single game, but who has a Major League Baseball record for most walks in a single game?
Are you able to tell us who he tied the A's? Who was the other person who had 5 walks in a
Yes,
game?
I can. It was Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire.
Oh, thank you very much. That's good
I
information.
see. I could have told you that if you'd asked me, but hey,
Very
let's
sharp,
move it on.
Eric.
But we didn't.
Very sharp.
So, moving on.
Okay, leadoff batter number 1, as always, is the news roundup. Well, we'll kick things off with a story that continues to leave a bit of a bad taste in the mouth. And that is, of course, the ongoing saga that is Trevor Bauer. Administrative leave has been extended another week to August the 20th, for those of you that aren't aware. He's been on administrative leave since July the 2nd. So that's basically for a whole month plus, almost 6 weeks, while the league investigates the sexual assault charges against him and will remain on leave for at least another week. The first thing I must say, guys, is MLB doing itself no favors by drawing this out? Should they not just make a decision so that we can move on? What's the thoughts?
I think they need to have all the information before they make a decision, and they're just being patient. What I would love to, it's tough to see, we don't know what's the result of that investigation is, but one thing I can tell you is what I would love to see, and this has to be negotiated with the union, is that money remain in some kind of escrow. And based on the results of that investigation, he should either lose his check or get the money in escrow. It's not, the fact that he's got guaranteed millions of dollars coming in while while he's not playing and he's under investigation, I think is a little bit unfair, and they should hold that money. But this is not really about the money. This is, it's about something far more serious, of course. And, I think that everybody owes it to everybody else to just, have some patience when it comes to waiting out Major League Baseball's investigation.
I mean, this story, of course, is just terribly upsetting. There was an article this past week in the Washington Post in which another woman came out with allegations about actions that Trevor Bauer took while he was still in Ohio. The only thing I'm not, regardless of this, I was already not a Trevor Bauer fan, just his personality, his swagger. He just wasn't my taste, wasn't my flavor of baseball player. But one thing that I do appreciate about his approach is he's going to say his position. So when it comes to the legal process, often players will just stay quiet. They'll sit back. He's going to go, at least from what I've heard, go on the stand. He's going to testify. And so we're going to hear his side. We're going to hear the other side. And then maybe we can make some sort of determination. It's an awful story. There's no doubt about it. There should be no place for this, and people should face tremendous sanctions, both legal and extra legal through baseball, if in fact, without reasonable doubt, that he's done these things.
And I just have to say that the report that came out in the Washington Post, I found quite confusing. I read all of it, and it seemed to draw different conclusions and then back off from them at the same time. So I didn't really kind of know what to make of it. If this woman, I couldn't tell whether or not, she had, issues with, she was actually arrested for alcohol when the police came to that situation between Bauer and the woman. She was arrested instead of just being, sort of taken at her word. She was arrested because she was drinking underage. This is the kind of things that happen to women in the United States, unfortunately, when situations like this arise. But I did find the reporting to be just confusing, and I could not make out what to take away from it.
But to your earlier point, David, that's why Major League Baseball should take their time. Let's get the answers.
Agreed,
let's
totally.
try and understand what's going on here, because it is confusing and it's really awful. I mean, if the allegations are accurate, it's terribly awful, and there needs to be action taken. But we should try not to jump the gun if we can.
We shouldn't jump the gun, but I really would like to see penalties stronger, and it also has to be negotiated for the next collective bargaining agreement, because what we've seen so far, I think, has not been enough, frankly.
So there's no question that this particular issue of this particular example is a hugely confusing grey area in terms of proving guilt or not or otherwise. But what shouldn't be in any doubt is Major League Baseball approach to making sure that players understand that any kind of behavior that even tips in this direction is totally and utterly unacceptable, and there will be very serious consequences if anybody is proven to be guilty of such behavior. So that needs to be established. And obviously I agree with you guys that actually the fact that they are taking their time to make sure they get the decision, but having made a decision, I think it's incredibly important that they set out very, very clearly, obviously with the players' union agreement, that the punishments will be severe. It's a lose-lose on every front, I think. Sorry, Eric, you were going to say.
Yeah, no, basically, we last year around this time, we had the honor of having Bill Lee on the show, former baseball legend, pitching legend. And he actually, if you remember, he said he was going to come up with a new book and he's going to dedicate it to Trevor Bauer, because he said we need more characters like that in the game. I'm wondering if he's actually going to retract that now. Moving on.
Okay, from a much more from a negative story to a positive one, and a very positive one, the rookie phenom that is D-backs lefty Tyler Gilbert, loving this, acquired by the Arizona D-backs in the minor league phase of the Rule 5 draft, and that was only 8 months ago. In his first ever major league career start, and that was on Saturday night, he throws a no-hitter, and he's only the fourth pitcher in history to throw a no-hitter in his first start, and the most recent one was Bubba Holloman in 1953, boys. So we're talking almost 75 years since it last happened. So no matter what happens to Tyler for the rest of his career, he's in the history books. What a great story.
I've got to say, obviously this has been the year of the no-hitter. This is my favorite no-hitter, bar none, without it. And, I loved Carlos Rondon. It was a chance for him to redeem. But this no-hitter was fantastic for so many reasons. First off, Gilbert last year wasn't even invited. He was in the Dodgers organization at that time. He wasn't even invited to the satellite camp. So he wasn't even playing. He was throwing bullpens at a high school and working as an apprentice for his dad to become an electrician. He was on the, I mean, he said that he still thought he was going to make it to the majors, but clearly he was on the verge of giving up. There was one scout primarily in the D-backs organization who believed in him. And when he became available in the Rule 5 draft, and when we think of the Rule 5 draft, we often think about it at the major league level, like Akil Baddoo, you get picked and you have to be on a major league roster. There's a minor league phase where you just have to be put at AAA. Diamondbacks pick him up. They decide to move him from being a reliever to a starter, which is very rare, right? Usually it goes the other way around. The pitcher doesn't have the full complement of pitches. So you choose one or two pitches that they're good at, shorten them up. He had been throwing as a left-handed reliever. He goes to the major leagues. This game was so fascinating because he gave up 10 instances where there was contact, where the exit velocity was 95 miles per hour or higher. The chances of all 10 of those turning into outs when you hit a ball that hard are incredibly low. I'm sure there are some anoraks out there who would do the actual number crunching, but the chances that he was going to get a no-hitter with that performance were so low, and it all happened. It was like the baseball gods came together and decided this guy has given his soul to the game and we're going to give him something back.
Well, a big part of why we love the whole Akil Baddoo story was the footage that we saw of his family celebrating what he did when he made his major league debut. And obviously they had similar pictures for this particular story. And I loved it when you referenced what he was doing last season when he was basically helping his dad out, JC. He said in reference to that, I'd rather be doing this than pulling wires. No offense, Dad. I mean, I just love it. I absolutely love it. And you're great. It is a great, great story. With the stats you just mentioned, JC, do you have concerns that obviously this is the height of his pitching career, that it's sort of inevitably it's all going to be a bit downhill after this and he might be a bit found out next time out? Yeah, I only ask because obviously I might pick him up in my fantasy team.
He was never a prospect, but to his credit, and this is such a emblematic element to baseball and the development of players, is that you can be a late bloomer. And what he did is he had a split finger, he had a knuckle curve, he threw a two-seamer. He added a cutter to his repertoire and it got better and better over time. So he really worked at his craft to get here. Is he going to be a frontline number one starter? I would say the odds are next to nil. Is he going to be a regular major leaguer? Maybe even that's a long shot. But the fact that he worked himself into this position speaks testaments to both him and to the sport and how you can develop as a player at 27. I mean, he was a guy who went to junior college, ended up at USC, good baseball school, University of Southern California, but kept on working at his game. It wasn't enough. He knew that and brought himself to this level for at least one night to be as good as any pitcher in the game against, he didn't throw a no-no against a weak squad. He threw a no-no against the San Diego Padres.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, 102 pitches, 3 pitches short of a Maddox, right? What they call them, the Maddox named after.
Well,
Greg.
I mean, what was so amazing,
less than 100 pitches.
Dave, was the 8th inning, and Torey Lovullo, the manager for the D-backs, was debating whether to keep him in. He had already blown by what his maximum pitch count was supposed to be for that, right? Because this is his first start. Here's a guy who was a reliever. In the 8th inning, he threw a 3-pitch inning, 3 pitches, 3 outs. And that's what saved him to stay in that game. Otherwise, he might have gone. Matt Moore had thrown a 6-inning no-hitter. He got pulled from a game earlier this week because of those sort of aspects. But, you're looking, it's almost lucky, right? Because you're looking at a team like the D-backs who are so terrible. And for Lovullo and for Gilbert, it's like, well, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We're not going to the postseason. We might as well let it ride. So, again, the baseball gods made this the perfect storm for Gilbert to have that special night.
This has been an interesting chat, but first waffle of the day.
Oh, okay. Moving on.
Well,
from a, I've got a great segue here, guys. From a rookie arm to an established ace, he returns. The legend that is Chris Sale, and has a great outing for Boston. For his first outing, I mean, Boston did their level best to make sure he got a win. 16 runs scored when they pounded Baltimore on Saturday. And the man was looking good. We'd all heard about his exploits in the minors and how good his arm looked. This is his first time back for absolutely ages since Tommy John surgery. So I think it's his first back in over a year, isn't it? So is this, the question I want to ask you, Daisy, is one thing you mentioned in a previous show was that you were concerned about Boston with their recent slump, that they hadn't made any major moves prior to the trade deadline. Is getting someone like Chris Sale back the equivalent?
I do believe so. I think it's the shot in the arm that team needed. You said it's been almost 2 years since Sale has pitched in the big leagues because of his arm injury. Here's a guy who is an established ace, and everyone's sort of holding their breath. And the Red Sox, they got some relief pitching. They did a little bit on the edges, but you were looking at that division where the Yankees and the Blue Jays really leaned in to try and add to their, their roster. The Tampa Bay Rays also with Nelly Cruz did something, and the Red Sox really didn't do much. So I think this is a huge moment for them. Sale pitched even better than his box score suggested. He threw 5 innings, gave up 2 runs, but those were both solo shots. You take those away, and he was pretty dominant in that game. And
didn't walk any, did he? 0 walk, right?
8 strikeouts in 5 innings. It was a fantastic outing. So the Red Sox need that. Tanner Houck, who they've brought up, I really like him too. If you can get that rotation looking a little stronger, maybe it gives them a little bit of a burst that they certainly need, because they've dropped off the pace a little bit.
And by the way, in case Red Sox fans were wondering, and they shouldn't, whether or not Chaim Bloom was the right man for the job to become the president of that ball club or whatever his title is, look no further, because he knew what he had. He trusted his organization to be able to evaluate a guy like Sale. He's going to be able to help us. And that had a lot to do with what they did do or didn't do at the deadline. And that's a credit to Bloom.
You have been touting Bloom for every show you've been on. I know you love him so much. I'm still not convinced.
I'm so mad I don't have Bloom.
I think it's a shot in the arm. I think that it has an opportunity to help that team galvanize a little bit, but I still think they should have done more at the trading deadline.
Okay, last item of the news roundup. Eric, what's the latest on our dear friend Akil Baddoo with a view to a kill?
Well, Akil Baddoo, did you know that since you were, I don't know where I was going with that.
Painful.
Since you guys last recorded your last episode, he went 1 for 3 and unfortunately had a very scary collision with fellow outfielder Derek Hill. So Akil Baddoo is on a 7-day DL concussion watch list kind of thing. Well, Derek Hill has got a contusion in his rib cage, so he will be back. We don't know when exactly, whether it was a deep concussion. But here's the thing: you got to think about Akil Baddoo. Is like, we've been sort of winging him. Yeah, he started hot and then he went cold. And hey, look, it's a great story having Akil Baddoo. But then you look at his numbers. He is actually a AL Rookie of the Year candidate. When you think of, he's hitting 267, 6 triples, 10 home runs, 45 RBIs.
6 triples is a lot.
Leading the American League in triples.
Exactly.
That's a lot.
And there were 2 home runs that were robbed from him as well. So he
steals bases.
So he is a prime candidate for AL Rookie of the Year. And I think it's because of our Akil Baddoo watch.
I want to ask whether in all our years, we did the Weaver watch, we did Granderson. Is this our best pick? Granderson was already good. Weaver didn't do very well when we watched him, but we're not exactly the Gouldy, no more Garcia Parra glove jinx is not happening to Akil Baddoo. He is above our jinxing abilities.
Now you just jinxed it.
Can we just give a quick hat tip to the Detroit Tigers, who are 18-10 in the second half? I know the division.
Thank you very much.
It's not the most challenging, but they've been one of the more exciting stories in the second half, playing above their pay grade. The
aim is
flirting with 500 all of a sudden.
The aim is to finish above 500. Thank you, David. Exactly. And can I also say,
pleasure.
Look out for a guy called Spencer Torkelson. What a great name, Spencer Torkelson, playing Double A.
We've talked about him already. He was the #1 overall pick last year.
But did you know that he went 7 for 7 this week with 3 home runs?
Wow.
That's what you're the #1 overall pick. You sure as hell better go 7 for 7.
There you go.
Oh, geez.
So,
honestly, we
tough crowd. Josh is a tough crowd today.
We talked about the Tigers.
Give the guy credit. He went 7 for 7.
No, exactly.
What if he's a top?
You interrupted me before. You stole my thunder, and he went for 7 for. But hang on a second, we already talked about him. So, all right,
that's a great impersonation.
Okay, so yes, anyway, 7 for 7, 3 home runs. Okay, maybe he's not so good anyway.
In your face, Josh.
In your face. Not that he's so good. It's that he's living up to expectations.
So he will hopefully see him in the Detroit Tigers outfit as when we hit.
Maybe in
Excuse me,
September. Will they
well,
bring him up in September, or they wait because they want to?
They're gonna wait for service
They'll
time.
wait, yeah.
But guys, I'm the positive one because I have been saying that the Tigers are good all year. When you guys are all like lovable losers, I talked about their pitching. They have a lot of talent on that team.
They're going to be very exciting.
Wild
They even
card,
beat
you heard it here
Boston
first.
2 out of 3 games earlier in August.
Swept the Orioles, which is not hard to do. Moving on.
They're so not going to get the wild card. What a ridiculous statement that
Who
was.
said that?
Okay.
No one's. I didn't say
Well,
that.
Eric said it, but you weren't listening.
I didn't say what year though, did I?
I didn't hear that. I missed that.
Okay, the bell's rung, which means we have to move on to batter number 2. And we're going to talk about Iowa and the Field of Dreams. Now, did you guys watch this game? Was it Thursday night? White Sox for the Yankees. I watched it on TV. It was great.
How fun was that?
You got to turn it on.
How fun was that?
I thought it was great. I thought for once MLB came up with a great idea. Sounds like an absolute winner.
A little corny, right, folks?
Yeah, I see what we did there. Yeah.
So I'm a little trepidatious now because I've already been just smacked down for being a little negative, but I can be kind of curmudgeonly about this game. And I think one of the fearful takeaways, if you're a baseball fan, is I think it was a fun spectacle. Home runs into corn, very cool. But you're appealing on the back of a movie that's 30 years old. And, anyone who's under the age of 30, they're going field of what? And
right.
It's great for a certain demographic. I understand why it was popular for that demographic. I was never a fan of that movie particularly, but I get why people love it. I get
because you're soulless, right?
Okay. Yes, because I have no soul.
Right.
And I was a Bull Durham guy. Come on, they came out at the same time.
I know it has to be more real. Right.
Well, no, it's just like you don't have a game of catch. You play catch. I just right there, you lost.
Oy vey with that.
But bottom line, all that aside, the bottom line is that it makes me worry for baseball, right? Like, are they going to play in a Sandlot next year? Cause they're going to try and move a half a generation up for their movie. And then what's next? It was a fun event but they're doubling down. They're planning on going back in 2022 because they think that they've found some pot of gold. And I think that it's really going to diminish in its interest. I think this was a one-off, exciting, fun situation for a certain demographic, but Major League Baseball needs to pivot and come up with something similar but different.
Can I just, Dave, before you come in, buddy, I've just got, I rarely do this, but I've got to come in here. The minute JC says anything about being curmudgeonly, I have to get involved. Okay, first and foremost, it does not matter that this movie is 30 years old. Why? Because it's so iconic. It's the sort of movie that if you have any interest in baseball, you will show your kids. I was not born when It's a Wonderful World came out. Yeah, I watch it every single year.
Wonderful
I've made my
Life.
Wonderful Life. I've watched it so often that I remember the name. And obviously that, I've already made my son watch it. So a movie, just because it came out 30 years ago, doesn't mean it's not relevant to a modern audience. Everybody in America knows the movie. Everybody's watched it. So
See, I
in
disagree
that respect,
with that, Goldie. I disagree with that. I don't think the movie has that resonance that you think it has, certainly outside of baseball fans. And certainly for a younger generation.
But this is all they're appealing to. All they're appealing to is to baseball fans.
Hang on.
So you're telling me that a baseball mum and dad who love baseball, who therefore love that movie by definition, because it's one of the greatest baseball movies ever made, are not going to make their kids watch that movie? Of course they are.
I'm saying that as a one-off, it's fine. I'm saying that if you're going to come back in 2022 and think that you're going to get the same ratings and that excitement and thrill maybe for the one-off of Kevin Costner coming out of the corn and the players coming out of the corn is more than just a singular spectacle, you're kidding yourself.
Okay, Eric, answer me this. Were the viewing figures off the charts? Were the tickets the hottest tickets in town? So if that's
in Cedar Rapids,
it was the highest rated baseball game, regular season baseball game since 2004.
Right, and I keep on saying, but Gouldy, you're not disagreeing with me.
No, but what I'm saying is, when you're dealing with the sort of numbers, I mean, how big is the crowd in terms of that stadium? What is it? It's only about 7,000, isn't it? It's relatively
7,822.
Yeah.
Right, there you go. Well, that's going to fill up at those ticket prices for the next 50 years. They're never going to have a problem selling those tickets.
We will talk next year, and the ratings will not be anywhere near that. It was a singular spectacle trying to leverage a film that's 30 years old that primarily appeals to an older audience, where baseball really should be focusing on marketing their players. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying it was a great game, but I'm saying it's being oversold a little bit.
Couple of things here.
Go
now,
on, Dave.
With accepting Josh's idea that nobody cares about Field of Dreams if they're like under the age of 30, something, whatever the cutoff may be. Accept that idea. What's good about this game other than that? First of all, setting. It's really cool to play baseball games in unusual places. And secondly, I think it's great that baseball goes on the road and takes baseball to places where it's never been played before in the regular season. I think that forget the movie, right? If the movie is like just the hook to get something like this going, why not go up and play a game in Alaska, in the mountains, set up a field, go to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, or all these. There's a million places you could go to help spread the game and spread interest. A little bit old-fashioned barnstorming in a sense, and a modern-day version of that. And baseball needs fans, and things like this can help bring in new fans.
Dave, you and I are agreeing because I think
I told you I'm not talking about that.
I think as a singular spectacle, it was brilliant. It was a great one-off, but I think that what Major League Baseball tends to do is they find the horse and they run it into the ground. And rather than doing what you're suggesting, which I think is very wise a marketing approach, they're going to go back to Field of Dreams set over and over again and get marginally lower ratings, not expand the fan base. And they're misunderstanding the value. And the value is what you're talking about, Dave, which is going somewhere different, showing baseball in a different venue that makes it fresh and exciting.
And here, there's even more value. I don't know if you saw this, but there was a big sign put up by, I don't know who funded it, End Blackouts. That's another thing we can talk about in another episode. But the people who want to end blackouts, which is Major League Baseball not allowing certain games to be played in certain markets to protect certain deals, television deals that are in place in local sports with local sports affiliates in certain cities. You can't be like, for example, if you're in Las Vegas, you can't stream Dodger games, Giants games, A's games, Angels games. I think there are 6 teams in if you're in Las Vegas, you can't watch. And that's another thing. We can talk about that later, but I just found it very interesting that they used that opportunity to post a big sign there and get some attention to what is really another large issue surrounding Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I mean, it's the regional sports nets have been their cash cows for way too long, and they're scared they lose that golden calf that they're hosed. But you're right. I mean, it's hurting baseball a tremendous amount.
Absolutely.
So that is a story.
Those things fly in opposite directions. Trying to find new fans, and there you are taking away opportunities to get new fans with the blackouts.
Dave, that's a conversation for a future show. Let's get back to what we were discussing, which was Batter 2, which is Iowa, Field of Dreams. I want to ask Eric, you want to give a special shout out to Murray Cook.
Murray Cook. We had Murray Cook on the show last year when this game was originally scheduled, which of course got canceled in the end because of COVID. He did a fantastic job on setting up this field. Him and his team of groundskeepers and field maintenance engineers. What a great job. How pretty were those aerial shots?
Well, and I don't know if you guys noticed, there's a little bit of London there as well, too. Home plate was the same home plate used from the London series.
That's correct.
They used a lot of other materials from the London series and brought it out to Iowa to be there.
That's right. Exactly. So it's
did the home plate have to quarantine? I'm just curious.
Well, no.
It had a mask on it. Did you not
Right,
notice?
okay.
It didn't go via Canada. Exactly. One thing I like to shout out as well is Benjamin Regal, who was a fellow TV producer, a baseball producer. He's one of my kind. We both we both go in therapy together. How horrible it is working with talent, and he was there. He was actually at the Field of Dreams game with the Caps Off guys.
Wow.
And I was asking him about what's the best delicacy there, and believe it or not, there was an apple pie hot dog.
I heard about this.
Apple pie hot dog inside an apple pie, which was.
I heard it was okay.
Did you have to eat it in a Chevy? Did you have to be sitting in a Chevy? To eat it?
Probably.
Apple pie, hot dog, Chevrolet. Come on.
Let's see what we did there.
No, nobody. Okay.
Right.
No, I remember.
I'm gonna go home now, guys. It's been fun.
Did your friend try it? Did he review it?
He said there are certain things that you have. If I go, okay, that's ridiculous. That sounds so disgusting. I gotta have a bite. And he did. He says, "Oh my God, it works."
No kidding.
And so, yeah, it's like I did that. Same thing happened to me in Scotland when I had a haggis samosa. I thought that's ridiculous. I can't believe that exists. I must order
That makes sense, though. That makes
And
more
then
sense.
it's like,
than that.
Deep fried. Yeah.
haggis samosa is fantastic. And there you go.
Now I want haggis. Thanks a lot, Eric. I can get haggis very easily.
Maybe
here
one
in
day there'll be a
upstate New
game in
York.
Scotland. We'll have a haggis hot dog or something.
Good, thank you.
But yes, I enjoyed it. I'm with Josh as well. That imagine being one of those lucky few who went to this Field of Dreams game, and then being told afterwards that, oh, there's gonna be another one next year. It's like, oh, so it's not so special anymore. It's leaked out that apparently it's gonna be the Cubs, but against who we don't.
And this is really important to pay attention from our standpoint as a British focused baseball podcast. It likely means that any possibility of coming back overseas to either London or elsewhere in Europe is being pushed back even further because they typically.
I agree with that. They're putting all their eggs over there in that basket. Although the fact that they're willing to deal with smaller gate does open up maybe perhaps the Netherlands a little bit because they wouldn't have to do the giant expansion. Josh, you would know a little bit more about that than me.
Yeah, I mean, my concern though is the ratings were so good in this, and that's why they're so excited about it. So they feel that they can sell more television. I don't think the London series played quite the way this played on television in the US.
Can I finish this story off with one interesting fact, guys? Just going to reverse to Murray Cook. I obviously, fellow Canadian, Eric, you obviously know him well. I didn't feel I knew much about him, so I wanted to look into. What you may not know is that he shares his name with the Australian musician and actor who was one of the founding members of the children's band, the Wiggles. Do you remember the Wiggles?
Yes.
That's a great stat, Johnny.
There you go.
Totally irrelevant.
Hey, I watched the Wiggles with my boy when he was a little one.
That is huge waffle. That was
wielding the waffle.
You should be crushed.
He was the founding member of the Wiggles.
By a waffle
that is so
asteroid.
exciting.
I feel like we should have the
we have waffle
of the
and
show.
bell. I'm ringing the bell with a waffle.
Okay, moving on. Batter three. Right, boys. Dave, I'll start with you on this one. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're going to say two biggest surprises of the season, I think definitely you're going to say the Giants, and you may even say the Rays. Now, when you consider these two teams, as of right now, they have the best records in the major leagues. The Giants, I think prior to us recording tonight, 75-42 with a 641 record, and the Rays 71-46, 607 record in the American League. Now, the question I want to ask you is, there is an element of surprise, certainly about the Giants, but are we true believers if, despite the fact that we're over halfway through the season and they are not just doing well, they are the best in the two divisions? And yet, if I was to ask you honestly, do you anticipate a Giants-Rays World Series? Do you put either of them in that position, let alone both of them?
Well,
and if you don't, then you don't believe in what's happening right now.
I believe that they're great teams. I also believe that anything can happen in the playoffs, and certain teams are built better for the postseason than others. I happen to look, if you don't believe that the Rays can make the World Series now after seeing them make it last season and watching them continue to excel even after losing certain players, including Snell, who was their ace, then you're not watching. They were disrespected by Las Vegas. Their over-under number at the beginning of the year was, I think, 85.5. They're going to win at least 90 games this year, aren't they? Or 92 games, I would say, at the pace that they're going. I would also put the Red Sox in that category, by the way. Their over-under was 80, and here they are. They already have 68. So they're also a huge surprise. You have to put them in that category. But we're talking about the Rays and the Giants. I think that the Giants are a more of a well-rounded team this year. I love that they have Gausman there as the head of that staff. And I think one of the things that we haven't thought about much with the Giants is, the benefit that team always struggled offensively, even when they were winning World Series, and they moved in the fences after the 2019 season. And I think that play has paid tremendous dividends, especially when you look at a guy like Crawford and you look at the resurgence of Posey and guys like this. And I think that's really, really helped them. I like the Giants and the pedigree for the World Series. I think it is certainly possible that they could play each other. No question about it, because I think they're both built for it.
Let's see if we focus on the Giants. I mean, people forget just how rich their baseball history is. More wins than any team in the history of major American sports. That's across the board. As we know, very successful, particularly in recent years. Won the World Series 3 times in 5 years, supposedly with no offense.
Incredible.
They've picked up Chris Bryant. What a great pickup that is. This is a genuine superstar. I mean, if we focus on the Giants, first of all, between these two, we've said it before, we can't quite believe it. I'm really converted. I could see them going all the way.
And Josh, before you go, I just want to mention the Giants over-under number this year. They're certainly the biggest surprise of the 3 teams we've mentioned so far. 75.5. I mean, what do they have? 74 wins right now.
Yeah. 75 wins. Yeah.
75.
Yeah.
To me, when you look at their rosters, though, the Giants at this point don't seem as much a surprise to me as the Rays. You talk about Chaim Bloom. There is nobody who does baseball better than the Rays, in my opinion, and that includes the A's. Because you look at this roster and you see Zunino or Brandon Lowe or the Rosarena.
Right.
These are your best players.
Who are these guys, right?
And they're all hitting 270, and their pitching staff has been a mess. I mean, they traded away Snell, they traded away Morton,
yeah.
And then Glasnow's out with Tommy John surgery, and yet they continue to win. I mean, imagine any other team dropping those players. And if you're the Dodgers or you're the Yankees, you say, okay, I'm going to go do a dance with the luxury tax, and I'm going to go out and figure out a way to fill those spots. What the Rays did? They traded away Rich Hill, one of their other best pitchers. And admittedly, he had been struggling, so it was probably a pretty smart move. And yet they figure out a way to keep on winning. I don't have a big enough brain to know exactly what they're doing in those back rooms to figure out how you put these pieces together to make them work so well. But on paper, they don't look like a team that should be where they're at, but we don't play the game on paper. And this is a great example of other teams should be watching the Rays regularly to figure out what that secret sauce is.
And don't forget, we thought when Wander Franco came out that he was going to be somebody who we would watch in the second half and that he would help this offense, reach even another level. And he's been okay. He's a rookie. I mean, what he's doing is fine. He's got an OPS of 700. I mean, it's fine for a rookie, but all the expectations he hasn't reached them, and it hasn't slowed them down even a touch.
Yeah. And they trade Willie Adames, who was like their starting shortstop in a World Series team. Admittedly, he'd been playing quite badly, so they were sort of selling low. But the team's amazing. I feel like we haven't spent enough time tipping our hats to the Rays. We've talked about other teams. We've talked about the Giants a reasonable amount. But the Rays being in first place in this division where we thought that Toronto was going to be so good, and Toronto doubled down at the trading deadline, and same with the Yankees, that those two teams are sitting in third and fourth. And the Red Sox, as you point out, David, have definitely been overachievers. But the Rays, to me, have been a special team in this regular season.
I don't know. The one thing I will say, I do think that they could both reach the World Series, but without having like the Snell type player and the Morton guys on the roster, are they going to be able to work it in the similar way that they did so successfully last year? My sense is probably not. When I think about it a little bit more, they're a little less built for the postseason than they were, say, last year. But, they may be thinking this is a regroup year for them, and all this is just bonus. I mean, who knows what they've got cooking.
The key for that team, and it was true last year too, was having multiple inning bullpen pitchers. That was sort of, we talk about untapped, undervalued markets. That's what Moneyball was all about. It was OPB at that time. I think that one of the things that the Rays have done is they've found tremendous value in those middle inning guys. Like Andrew Kittredge is a perfect example of that, who, can go 2-3 innings in the middle of a game, serve as a bridge if your starter's not doing well. If you have 2 or 3 of those, yes, you tax your bullpen, but you can get wins. And I think that that's been one of their sort of sneaky keys.
We'll see. It's going to be very interesting to see what they can do this postseason.
But you talk about how great a club the Rays are in terms of what they do with the budget, and you keep mentioning Blake Snell. Both of you have mentioned him now, and yet no matter how good he has been and was last season and has been in previous seasons, this year with San Diego in a pitcher's park, he's got a 4.80 ERA and a 1.56 WHIP. It begs the question. I mean, these Rays just are absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not just good at what they do, but they seem to have a sense of when to get rid of someone who's, in everyone else's eyes, is why would they do that? Why would you let somebody who's...
Why would you ever trade with the Tampa Bay Rays?
Right. But you also asked the question, is it also coaching, right? That when Snell was with the Rays, did he make adjustments because they had people around him who could help him make that adjustments? And I'm not disparaging the Padres. It could be a whole host of reasons, but perhaps that's one of the things too. It's not just that they're identifying players who are on the downslope, but when they're with the Rays, they have the type of personnel to help those players reach their tops.
Okay, quick question to round this conversation up, and I want this from all three of you. Do the Giants and the Rays make the World Series? If you were putting your money, would you back either of them? JC?
No.
David?
I'm never going to count out the Giants.
Okay.
I don't think on second thought, I think maybe the Rays aren't. I don't think they're quite as built for the World Series as they were last year. But just having a guy like Gausman at the top and having those fences in a little bit in the offense, the way that they're connecting out there, I think it's certainly possible. Wouldn't it be great?
Yeah,
how about a Dodgers Giants NLCS?
That's such a hedge, Dave. I mean, is it possible? Yes. The postseason is completely ridiculous in terms of players get hot. It makes a difference. I'm just saying that if you were telling me that I had to put my money down on it, they wouldn't be my first choices in either.
I'd put $100 on the Giants. I mean, they got 74 wins in one of the toughest divisions in baseball.
Eric, how about you?
I'd put 100 on them.
Bay Area's World Series. You heard it here first. There you
go. Sorry, say that again.
Bay Area World Series.
Giants
Bay
A's.
Area
Wow.
World Series.
I like it.
Okay.
I like the cojones.
That'd be fun.
Narrowly missed out by the Tigers and the Cincinnati Reds. There you go. Moving on.
Just in case you're interested, I'm just having a quick look at the World Series odds, and the Rays are 15-2, and the Giants are 15-2. They are fourth favorites equal for the World Series. So even the bookies are starting to believe. Okay, we're moving on. It's time for the seventh inning stretch-a-doo-dah. And what a great pleasure it is to have the boys back, because it means that JC and I can sit back and relax. Eric, over to you. Baseball book of the week.
The baseball book of the week this week is, because I mentioned earlier that Mark Fidrych, who was number 20, and today is episode 20. Yesterday would have been his birthday, and he would have been 66 years old. Tragically, he died in 2009 in an accident where a truck that he was working on rolled over and crushed him, and very tragic accident. And for me, my childhood hero, let's wind the clock back to 1976. Yes, I'm showing my age now.
Yeah, you really are.
A nationally televised on Monday Night Baseball was the Detroit Tigers against the New York Yankees. It was blacked out in Detroit, Michigan, believe it or not, but we got it in Canada. So I was able to watch a ridiculous game of Mark Fidrych pitching, an absolute gem of a game. And well, for those of you who know who Mark Fidrych is, he's one of those characters of the game. He was a rookie that year. He's a rookie of the year in 1976. And he's just an eccentric. He talked to the ball. He would sort of groom the mound himself. He wouldn't let the groundskeepers. He sort of, every time he go back to the mound, he sort of groom it himself and fill in any divots and whatnot. And it was just an absolute great thing. Basically, I probably wouldn't be here. I probably wouldn't be much of a converted baseball fan. I had just moved from Montreal as a kid to Southern Ontario. So I was a Montreal orphan, an Expos orphan. I was away from Expos, and it was pre-Blue Jays. This is 1976. The Blue Jays didn't exist yet. So I used to listen to WJR, 760 AM radio. I listened to Tigers game. I used to watch Tigers games on TV. And anyways, my point is, Mark Fidrych actually has two books written about him. One of them is called No Big Deal, written by Tom Clark. Don't read that one. It's crap. I don't recommend that one. But what I do recommend is a book called The Bird by Doug Wilson. And the reason why Mark Fidrych's nickname was The Bird, because he was tall, he was lanky, he had a moppy kind of like, disheveled hair. So imagine wearing a Detroit Tigers cap and having unkempt hair. That'd be crazy, wouldn't it? So his nickname was Big Bird. He was also the only baseball player ever to appear on the cover of the Rolling Stone magazine. Wow. That's right. Did you know that Andy Leibovitz, actually a well-renowned and esteemed photographer, took that picture of him on the cover of Rolling Stone, and she's coming to London in November, and I've set up an interview to meet Annie Leibovitz and interview her about two things: her taking photographs of John Lennon, and her taking photographs of Mark Fidrych. How about that? So there's my baseball book of the week, The Bird by Doug Wilson, The Life and Legacy of Mark Fidrych.
Can I just chime in here? A few things. One of the great things that made Mark Fidrych so interesting is because he had this kind of childlike quality on the mound, and he just seemed like a kid out there who was having fun. But there's the statistical side to him as well. And when you talk about great rookie seasons amongst pitchers, this has to be amongst the best when you really think about it. 19-9, 2.34 ERA, 24 complete games.
24 complete games.
250 innings. And that's his rookie year. 250 innings, but only 97 strikeouts. So a control pitcher pitched to contact and didn't walk too many folks. And he finished second in the Cy Young in addition to winning the Rookie of the Year. So not just a Rookie of the Year season, a season, for all time.
You talk about famous covers too, Eric. The other really famous cover was on Sports Illustrated, where there was Mark Fidrych alongside Big Bird.
The actual Big
and
Bird.
they look like, separated at birth. And
right.
I mean, it was really that sort of same sort of floppiness. And you could see that the energy, you mentioned, David, that he had a childlike quality. He was definitely a man child, but I always think of it in a different term. He had an effervescence. There was like a positive energy that came from him when he was on the mound that got people excited.
And I'll tell you what, I had the fortune never meet your heroes. Well, I met my hero in 2005 All-Star Game in Detroit. I met and talked to Mark Fidrych, interviewed him quickly, and I felt like that I'm done. That was it. It's like meeting royalty. Sadly, his career sort of derailed after that rookie season. He injured himself in spring training the following year. It was never the same. So that 1976 one-off year was just a magical year. And sadly, yesterday would have been 66, but we.
And yet invited to the All-Star game in '77, despite the injury. And the story I like, guys, as a result of you doing this, Eric, I was looking at this. Only selected in the 10th round by the Tigers. Later joked that when he received a call saying he'd been drafted, he thought they meant he was drafted into the military. Wasn't aware that any teams were even looking at him.
That was so his personality. This is definitely waffle material. I'm sorry, Eric, but
if it's Mark Fidrych, waffle away.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
You get a waffle pass,
which is that we lost another great pitcher who was, a brief shining star in the constellation of baseball. This past week, J.R. Richard died.
That's right.
And for those who don't know who he is, he was also a person who came onto the scene and was one of the most dominating pitchers in baseball. Very different from Fidrych. He was a power pitcher. He pitched with the Houston Astros, put up insane numbers in the first few years of his career, and then started feeling tingling in his hand. They really weren't doing anything to identify what the problem was. He turned out he had a number of mini strokes. He ended up later in life being on the street because he was indigent. Pulled himself back together again, lived a number of years longer past that where he had sort of pulled it together. But for people of my age, just slightly younger than Eric, he was one of the great stars, him along with Nolan Ryan with that Houston team. Dominating pitcher. If he had stayed healthy, he was well on the way. He had a trajectory for a Hall of Fame career.
I'm going to use my waffle pass to finish on Mark Fidrych because I just saw this. If you're a WAR person, I know not everybody is. So Jim Palmer won the Cy Young that year. He had a WAR of 6.5. He won 22 games. Mark Fidrych had a WAR of 9.6.
Wow.
And the Tigers finished second.
That's a career WAR for the people who don't know that. A good players will have like about a 10 career WAR. He did that 1 year.
Well, no, this was just that season.
That's my point. He did it in 1 year, and I'm saying just to give some sort of context.
Yes, 9.6
is like 6.5. A career.
5.
People who have a career would love to have a 9 WAR for their whole.
So
career.
he should have won the Cy Young Award. I mean, there's no one even close to him that year when it comes to WAR, at least. So there you go.
So there's, that was my book of the week. But now moving on to baseball and pop culture and how they intertwine. And this, you guys weren't around, Josh and David, last time when I did the show with Johnny and James, where I introduced music to the fold.
Oh God!
Hey, Eric,
lucky you guys.
You have not been listening to the show because the week before that I did a music thing. The week before you did that. You gotta listen to the show.
I don't
when you're
believe.
not
I think
watching.
Josh is making that up to
Okay,
show
so
Eric up.
in that case, what song did I choose for? There you go.
I have no idea. I don't watch the show.
So, anyways, the last time I was on the show, I picked Jane Morgan, and Johnny didn't seem to like that song.
I wasn't alone.
Loads of people enjoyed that, and we had a lot of feedback from Jane Morgan's baseball song. This time, okay, now I'm going to stay with Mark Fidrych because there was a song that came out that year in 1976. Yeah, I think we can all agree that the golden age of disco, it was pretty much sucked. Disco sucks. Let's face it. It was no one actually sits at home and goes, "Oh God, I wish Casey and the Sunshine Band could be
I
formed
like
again."
disco.
Whoa.
Come on, disco.
Are you bad mouthing the Bee Gees right now? What is going on?
Yes, I am.
Seriously. There's some
You're a
good funk.
disgrace.
Helmet
However,
Houston. Come on.
However, there was a disco track. Now, when I used to listen to WJR radio, 760 AM from Detroit to Tigers game, there was a song that came out. It was like an earworm. It's not a disco track, but it was about Mark Fidrych, and it goes something like this.
Guess who's playing at the stadium? They're gonna show the game on TV. There's a bird on the mound, superstar bound, and I've just gotta see the bird. Yeah, the bird. The bird. Hats off for the bird. You give us all the things that count. That's
I like
why
that.
we
I don't have any problem with that.
always
I'm into the intro. It's got a little funk to it.
Are you deaf? That was
You're-
even worse than Jane Morgan.
I'm
That
not
was
surprised to
awful.
hear Johnny being.
You know what this
Johnny probably
is?
has
The
a
sh-
musical ear of like a buffalo.
Can I say what this episode is? It's like the reunion of the curmudgeons. It's like everyone's got something to be pissed about.
I'm sorry. What possible justification have you got for saying you like that? It was a dirge.
Now,
I mean,
about
you're
it?
not
Awesome.
tapping your foot, you're not dancing, you're not singing along to the lyrics. There's nothing poetic about it.
When I was a kid, listen to my transistor radio. Kids today won't appreciate this. I waited forever on WJR 760 AM radio to so when are they going to play that song
WJR.
called "The Bird" from it's by a band called Fans, FANZ. Yes, exactly. They went nowhere after this song.
What a surprise.
But
One
are they
hit
doing
wonder.
now?
One hit
but
wonder.
I tracked down on 45 vinyl. It was a 45 single, because I don't know what that is either. And I have it. It's in the basement, not my
Of
parents.
course you have it.
But-
Your endless search for crap to fill up your
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Exactly.
Dark.
Oh, by the way, I'm actually
Dark.
filling up. I'm filling up David Langell's.
filling up my basement. Now I have stuff. I have a St. Louis Browns jersey in my basement that belongs to Eric.
That's
And now I have a
awesome.
box full of books that
Dave,
belong
Dave, you
to
could
Eric.
you could send me the St. Louis Browns jersey if you don't want it.
You
I'll-
got it.
I'll pay for
by
shipping.
the way, you got more stuff coming, David. I just ordered more.
Oh, thank you. I'm
Saved me a
very
lot of
proud.
import charges.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Now, by the
When
way,
you
Wait,
die,
so-
your
so-
kids are going to find so much crap, and they're not going to know. You
And
are
they'll-
going to cost
they're going
them
to be so
weeks
rich.
of their life.
They're going to
cleaning out
sell.
their-
They're going to sell that disco 45 vinyl for like $1 million, guaranteed. But there, anyways, I'll.
What amazes me is you draw a comparison between two dirging performances and talk about one being better than the other. That's like saying you prefer semolina to rhubarb. They're both disgusting. You wouldn't eat either. End of story. Why are you even making a comparison?
Now, before
wrong
that,
with semolina?
before I end this segment, now I have great pleasure is when we finally finish this podcast today. Johnny has to lead to the song in its entirety.
What?
Yep.
Who
Moving on.
compares semolina to rhubarb? Have you ever heard such a thing?
The only two things I won't
guarantee
eat,
that's
Dave.
never happened in the history of radio. You heard history tonight, folks.
I don't
Semolina
think
being
any
compared
of
to
us have
rhubarb.
taken our lithium today because
that?
it's just so dark.
Well, guys, now that we're moving on to the last section of the show, which
No,
is
we're
of course,
not. We got the trivia.
Oh, we got the trivia answer. Sorry, I was losing the will to live.
You're just looking forward to hearing that song.
Get in
again.
line, Goldie.
The Bird
Go
by
on, then.
Fans. Yes.
Go on.
No, here we go. So I asked you earlier on our trivia question that Matt Chapman tied the athletics record for
Forgot
most
about that.
walks in one game with 5, but it's not the Major League Baseball record. Who currently holds the Major League Baseball record for most walks in one baseball game? Was it A, Bryce Harper, B, Jeff Bagwell, C, Barry Bonds, or D, Dusty Baker? I will go with Johnny Goulden first, I guess.
Well, okay, I'm trying to apply some logic here because obviously I don't know the answer. But we walked more than 5 times. You've got to be a leadoff batter. I can't see how it's going to be anybody else.
Good luck.
And Bryce Harper doesn't lead off. Barry Bonds didn't lead off. I'm trying to think back to Jeff Bagwell. I don't think he laid off. So I'm not sure about Dusty Baker.
Bagwell's not on offer.
Yes, he was.
Yes, he is. He's on his list.
Bryce Harper, Jeff Bagwell. No, he said Bagwell. Wow, Biggio did lead off, I think.
Oh, my God. Just give me an answer.
Okay, I'm going to go with Dusty Baker.
Dusty Baker. Okay.
Just purely on the basis that I'm thinking that I don't know if he led off, but he's the one that I know for sure.
David Langell.
Anyway.
Oh, God. Bonds is too obvious. I'll go with Bagwell.
Josh Chetwin.
He's going to go with Bonds.
No, I mean, Bonds is too obvious too. I think I'm going with Davey. I think I'm going with Bagwell.
Okay. So we got 2 Jeff Bagwells and 1 Dusty Baker.
2 Bagwells and a Baker.
Okay. I'm proud to announce that there are 2 correct answers here and 2 wrong answers.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, my God. None of us are going to have it.
Now, possible? Barry Bonds is an incorrect answer.
Yeah.
But Dusty Baker is also an incorrect answer.
No!
Both Bryce Harper and Jeff Bagwell have been walked 6 times.
Nobody wanted to see. People hate Bryce Harper. No one even wants to mention him. Even if he's the right answer, no one wants to mention him. Nobody likes that guy. Who likes Bryce Harper?
That was right neighborly of Eric, though, to give us two bites at the apple here.
Yes,
the Gouldy turned down.
And still couldn't get that poison apple.
Can I point out the obvious here, guys? It's obviously Jeff because he's well at getting bags.
Oh, God.
There you go. He's a bag well.
I mean, resign. Resign.
Resign
right now.
I don't get paid. Why am I resigning?
Gouldy,
resign from your free job.
What was that about a will to live, Gouldy?
We've all lost it. Move on swiftly.
Moving on.
Okay, well, do me a favor. Wake up and do the pointy to big up our social handles, which clearly needs to be done since nobody's sending in any questions.
Now that I'm back, I'll make sure there's some YouTube access.
Okay.
That's just YouTube click and
Yay!
like.
Eric, well done.
All curmudgeons aside, though, Gouldy, we have to say that we're so happy to have Eric and David back. It's
we are.
The same.
Well, thank you.
I hate to admit it, but
You're
yes,
very
we
polite.
are. You're right. You're absolutely right. And obviously, if you're not happy that Eric and Dave are back, let us know at Johnny and Josh on Twitter or the Johnny and Josh Show
You'd like
on
to
Facebook.
suggest a substitute host? Also
Absolutely.
let know.
If you want it to be the Eric and David show, let us know.
Hey, don't even make that suggestion.
I know.
Right?
You open that Pandora's box. It's
Exactly. I may not be getting paid to do this, but it's the only goddamn gig I've got. So let's move it on swiftly. If you're not listening to us, you certainly should be listening to at BHP Pod, and that is, of course, Behind Home Plate. If fantasy baseball is your world, we've got a show coming out in a few days' time, and that is, of course, with my dear friend and fantasy baseball legend, that is Mr. James Holden. Do, of course, check out the Nat Coombs Show at the NC Show, all part of the Ted Fred stable. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. Well, we will be on YouTube. We haven't been so far this season, but hopefully with Eric back in the driving seat, that will certainly be righted. All that to look forward to. What do you got happening this week, boys? Anything exciting?
No.
You weren't here earlier, Goldie. I picked up an injury, curling injury.
Oh no!
Oh my God, are you
really
okay?
bad? Right before. Well, it's right before we're about to go to these Olympic trials, Olympic pre-trials, and I hurt my calf. So
now what are you gonna? Now there's no chance.
But no, I still have 2 weeks.
You don't need a calf to
exactly. How do you hurt a calf when you're just walking along with a broom, for God's sake?
That's sort of ignorant talk. It's like people calling baseball rounders. You should know better than that.
I like
don't
being
talk
ignorant.
ignorantly about sports you don't know.
Mate, if you're getting injured at curly, the glory days are over. Just grow up and accept it.
Did I have glory days?
Josh, have you tried Pilates? Seriously.
I had to go. I'm going to physio this week. I went to see the orthopedic. It's bad, man.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry about that.
John. That's why I'm so curmudgeonly on the show. I'm taking it out on you guys.
Well, we wish you a speedy recovery, my friend, and may you make it to the Olympics if that is ultimately your dream. But that is it from us. Thank you to David, thank you to Eric, and thank you to Josh. All been so upbeat and positive. What a joy it was to join them on the Johnny and Josh show. That's it from us. See you next week, and we leave you. And I apologise in advance to anybody out there that, like me, has a sense of taste when it comes to music. But this is a throwback song from 1976.
Playing at the stadium, they're gonna show the game on TV. There's a bird on the mound